So, Mech has been on the rise in Zerg versus Terran. Zerg versus Terran has been a matchup that used to be dominated by bio units from Terran, but these days, Mech is the flavor of the months, the weeks, the times. So, what do we do against Mech play? Let's investigate this. One thing that I talked with Pig about is against Mech, you're going to be better off if you favor tech over going for a bunch of upgrades early. So tech meaning a faster lair and having a few more roaches out early to deal with various harassment things from the opponent. So we hear Milo barking in the background. He's doing his job as the watchdog of the apartment. That's good. So we went hatch gas pool here. Just the standard safe Zerg macro opening. Nothing too tricky about this build. The basic principle is you take your hatch gas and pool once you have 16 workers on the line in your main. That is minimum saturation, and that is probably the single most important thing you could focus on in improving your macro for all races in all matchups. So I made 6 Zerglings early on. The reason I made 6 is because it helps me be safe against the Reaper, and it also allows me to make some progress on these rocks here. This is a bit of a map-specific thing, where there's an obstacle that can be used against you pretty early on, especially when you're faced against a Terran opponent. Terran can put a siege tank here, they can put a bunch of stuff here, maybe a Liberator here, and really jam up your business right at the natural, which is very uncomfortable. So if you make 6 Zerglings, you have enough to push back the Reaper, and then some, to work on these rocks. Another benefit of making 6 Zerglings instead of 4 is that you have a little bit more to deal with the first 2 Hellions that come across the map. One thing that is a theme of Mech play is instead of doing early Marine aggression, usually the early aggression comes from a factory unit, the Hellion. So we see the Terran side of things, barracks reactor, factory, swap, 2 Hellions in production, and a starport. So what are we doing here? We're working on some rocks. I want to take a 3rd base here pretty soon. I'm making 2 more queens, so I'm going to be up to 4 queens, and I have no workers on gas after ling speed. Why did I do that? For some more minerals, so I can get ahead in the worker count. I can drone harder if I'm not mining gas. So I took ling speed, and now I'm droning as hard as I possibly can. Queens finish, injecting, and then as I hit 2 base mineral saturation on the line, I drop my Roach Warren and my 2nd gas at the same time. Notice this is still not filled. I want these gases to be filled whenever this one finishes, just as a nice reference. So the Roach Warren is going to be my defense investment against stuff like Hellions, Hellbats, that kind of deal. Queens are watching the ramp for the Reaper. I wanted to take a base here, but there was a Reaper, so I just took this base. This isn't quite the most ideal base, but I think it's better to take a slightly less ideal expansion and get it down quickly, as opposed to being stuck on 2 bases for a really long time. The next step here is making 5 safety roaches. Once your Roach Warren is done, it's nice to get some value from that and also make a little bit more army. Terrans tend to try and find some harassment damage in the early game, and with their build, this is going to be Hellions and a Liberator, and then a Banshee. 5 roaches just makes that way easier on yourself. So as you're at 2 base saturation for minerals, with 2 gases, taking your spores, and then going for 5 roaches with 4 queens is going to keep you pretty safe. So that's the order. 6 Zerglings, 4 queens, 5 roaches, and then you're basically in a race to hit 3 base saturation as fast as you can. Roaches try to deal with this. We'll take my vision for defending this harassment. We're trying to fight the Hellbats. Trying to fight them. Oh my goodness, there's a Liberator. Pull the workers. Use the spore. Dodge it. Send the spore. Send the queens. Got them. Alright, back to work. And then look at this wonderful state of the game now. We have 51 drones against 43 SCVs. We have 3 bases established. We have creep spread. We have queens. We have a lair that's almost done. Business is a-boomin'. This is a good situation for the Zerg. So how do we take even greater advantage of this? We drone even harder. We used queens to kill a banshee. Good job, queens. We take gases at the third base once it's a little bit oversaturated. Awesome. We lose a bunch of drones to Hellions. That's going to happen every time. It's a pain, but that's life. This space is saturated, and the gas is about to be filled. Hydralisk Den is being dropped as I'm taking the rest of my gases. Hydras are better units than roaches. Roach Hydra is a very solid and sturdy way to fight against Mech. So I'm going to go for Roach Hydra. Hellbats going in, you can't explain that. Going for a 4th base as I have 3 base saturation. Let's see, what are we making now? Now we're making roaches. And muscular augments for the Hydras, +1 range attack from the Evo chamber, and then I'm going to take +2 range attack. Overlord speed, so my overlords have speed and can go very fast. Double Thor drop, this is a common thing, it's very scary. You need to make a ton of roaches to defend it. And you also need to be in position at the 4th base. But the problem here is I pulled too much of my stuff to defend this Hellion drop, and I had to cancel my 4th base. You might think that this would be crushing sadness for the Zerg. That's right, it is. It's sad. You want to get your 4th base on time and really anchor that with some units. I could have defended this Hellion drop with maybe 2 roaches and the rest of my queens. So that was a little bit of a blunder by me. I'm taking another base. I have an infestation pit. I'm going for a hive so I can make vipers. As I'm making my hive, I'm making hydras +2 range attack. Drop Overlord for a roach drop that failed miserably because it was killed by Vikings. 5 swarm hosts, count them 5. I'm going to make more than that. Need to make lots of overlords to get up to 200 supply. Okay, killed a couple Vikings, that's great. 4th base is up. More swarm hosts on the way. Trying to push away these pesky Thors. Thor drops. Cool. Got one of them. Terran's going for +3 attack on those vehicles. 6 more swarm hosts. Hive is done making hydras. 5th base is up. And now we're going to start to put on some aggression as we're maxed. So I have swarm hosts on the right, roach hydra on the left. I just killed some depots and left. I'm not committed to trading my army against siege tanks that are defensive right now. I just went and dealt some damage. The opponent has a big army, so they're going to move out and attack. I could have taken a much better engagement here. Either I could have fought them as they were moving out of this base, or I could have moved over to the high ground first. I kind of ran down this path, which gave them high ground unnecessarily, so this was another big blunder by me. Be careful. Mech units hurt a lot, especially if they're upgraded, so this kind of deal here is ouch. Ouch. Okay. So the swarm hosts are coming back home. They're going to try and use their Hell Muffin powers to send the locusts at the Terran. Just as a reference, I have 14 swarm hosts right now. I think that's a pretty good amount. Oh my goodness. Do you see that green stuff on the tanks? That's called Blinding Cloud. Vipers use Blinding Cloud. It's very strong. The first time the Vipers are revealed is usually the biggest chance to get good Blinding Clouds. Once they know you have Vipers, then they can pre-split their tanks. This takes them more time and costs them more APM though. So this was a really nice opportunity where the Terran was trying to push into me. They had seen roaches, they had seen hydras, they had seen swarm hosts, but they had not seen vipers yet, so the tanks were not spread. So this was a super good kind of reveal of vipers. And now I'm in a good spot. Since this base got pushed in, I took this in the meantime. With Zerg, you should just be expanding a lot on the map. And it's up to the opponent to deny those expansions that you're taking. So now I'm redroning my losses. It's pretty important to fix your economy. If you get your bases pushed in a little bit, just remake some bases. So I'm going to remake some bases now. That's good. This base is remade, or actually, it never died, but I did lose some drones here. So I want to make more drones. What am I doing? Make drones. Production tab. Hydras and drones. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think pure drones would be better. I did take burrow, and I burrowed these drones as I saw the Hellions approaching my base. The reason I did that is because I didn't want the Terran to know there were workers here, and thus scan them. If the Hellbats stand on top of this and scan it, they kill them all in an instant. But I had them all burrowed, so this was the opponent's vision during this Hellion drive-by. I'll show you. I'll show you. Okay, this is the opponent's vision. Hellions are driving across. They're driving. And then here we go. Base is landed. And they see no workers here, but I have 18 drones underground. If they saw the drones burrow, maybe there would have been a scan go down. But they were hidden. Isn't that clever? Okay. So I dropped a second Evo chamber. I'm going for +3 range attack, +1 carapace. The hive is done. I have a Bane nest. I could go for Bane speed and go for Hydra Bane Swarmhost. It's a little bit better than Roach Hydra Swarmhost Viper. Not by a huge margin, though. You could probably just stay on Roach Hydra Viper Swarmhost. Cool, so now Locusts use their damage thing, so I'm going to fall back to the Vipers. Getting little pickups here and there, abducting some tanks, using blind if I see a bunch of them pumped up. And then going in, killing the tanks. Cool. And now we're very much in control of the game. We redroned some of our losses, not as many as we should have. I would have liked to see 70 workers again here. I am droning up again, though. That's good. Hydras, roaches, vipers. I only had 2 or 3 vipers this game. That's pretty much fine. You can go up to 5 sometimes. That's pretty good. Vipers aren't quite as good in huge numbers anymore. Parasitic Bomb got reworked, where now it does more damage for 1 Parasitic Bomb, but the Parasitic Bombs don't stack with each other. So if you have 5 Vipers and the Terran has a ton of Vikings, if the clouds are overlapping, they're only taking damage from 1 instance of the Parasitic Bomb. So, going in again as I'm maxed out. The Locusts go in, the Roach Hydra goes in, and then the Vipers follow and do some abducts. Abducts. And that's ZvT versus Mech in a nutshell. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays and stuff, okay?